if whenever you think about having something wanted, if it makes you aware that you don't have it, then the more specific you are, sometimes the more specifically resistant you are. It's like every subject is two subjects. You pick up a stick that has something wanted on one end, the absence of it is on the other. So you have to decide which end of the stick you are vibrating usually on. So if it's easy for you to imagine the details of the bus, if thinking about it in fact feels so good to you that it takes you right into the vortex, then we would say the more specific you are, the faster it will come. But if thinking about it reminds you that you don't have it, then the specifics of it slow you down. So that's why it's a sort of molding thing. The answer to the question is, be as specific as you can be while still feeling good. So another way of looking at it is by meditating and quieting your mind, the vortex will take you in. So once you are in the vortex feeling good, now begin pondering this desire. And as you ponder it, if you're able to still remain feeling good, then ponder it with more detail. And if you still feel good, ponder it with more detail. But if you get specific enough that it activates your awareness of lack, then the vortex will spit you out. Then you start the process over again. Get into the vortex in whatever easy way you can. Maybe by focusing on some subject that every time you think about it, you easily get into the vortex. Esther has a handful of those. She cannot think about the treehouse back home in Texas without going right into the vortex. And it's funny because she doesn't think about being in the treehouse. She thinks about the people who were building it and the joy they felt while they were building it. She had far more joy in the building process than in anything that she's done in the treehouse since then. But that treehouse and those men building that treehouse, they were like little boys again. It took longer to build that treehouse than it does most big houses. Because they were having so much fun, they never wanted it to end. And every board is a specially cut board. In other words, they just got in there and they milked it for all the fun they could get out of it. And when Esther thinks about the treehouse, she goes right there. Lovable cat takes her right into the vortex, unless she remembers that it got run over last year, and then right out of the vortex she goes. In other words, as you find a subject that takes you into the vortex, then milk it. That's what we mean by do your affirming from inside. So we teach meditation because, and you may laugh at this, it's easier to teach most of our friends to have no thought at all than to have pure positive thought on their subjects of desire. Because so many subjects of desire are laced with awareness that it hasn't come yet. And yet, what we're teaching is deliberate creation. In other words, what could be better than to be in the vortex, flying high, focusing your thought, and watching things come about? That's what you really intended, you see. So was that clear? Get in the vortex any way you can. Maybe meditation is the way. And once you're in there, think until the vortex throws you out. Then get back in there. And then think until the vortex throws you out. Until you show yourself that you are able to be a specific thinker of specific things wanted.
Okay. There's
one more thing that we want to give you here. And that is, this is an important answer to the basis of your question. You have to remember that you're not doing your creating from inside the vortex. You're doing your allowing from inside the vortex. You did your creating from outside the vortex. Most of it, I know what I don't want. Almost all of your asking happened from outside the vortex. So you ask and put it in there. Now your work is to allow. And sometimes when you start trying to create, it blows you out again. And here's the law that we want you to understand. The vibration of a question and a vibration of the answer are very different vibrations. The vibration of the problem and the vibration of the solution are very different vibrations. So when the problem has bounced you to the solution, can you see how your work is not to think your way in, but to feel your way in, or to quiet your mind and stop resistance? If you weren't doing that thing you do that keeps you from the vortex, you'd be in there. And that thing you do is thinking thoughts that are resistant to the vortex. So meditation, easy way in. Appreciation, easy way in. Chronic appreciation would hold you in the vortex. Chronic meditation would be a very boring life. Law of attraction is an across-the-board law that responds to all vibration. Source is a vibration. Law of attraction is responding to vibration. So that's why we say, as you explore here in the contrast of your physical world and you expand, source takes that expansion and holds the vibration of that expansion. Then law of attraction responds to that vibration, and that's what fleshes out the vibration and makes it the manifestation that then you call real world. So the difference between law of attraction and source is that source is a vibration that law of attraction responds to. Well, the law of attraction responds to a vibration that's offered, and we like the direction of your question because all that has been lived has culminated into this vortex of creation that you are right now calling source. In other words, this source is a pure vibration that holds no resistance. So when law of attraction responds to this pure vibration that holds no resistance, that's why eternity is assured. And that's why well-being is promised, you see. So here's human out here worrying about this, shooting that one, killing that one, robbing from that one, plundering that one, worrying about all kinds of things. But as man has those experiences, he asks for improvement, which source becomes. And so that's why we can unequivocally state to you that this source that you want to call God or source, we're calling it all that is, that expanded vibrational reality is the synthesizing and the best that is erupted out of all that has been lived. Ooh, it's so powerful. That's why we can stand here and assure you that well-being is the order of your universe. And that while, as a human, you can temporarily pinch yourself off from it, that the well-being of all that is and the well-being of your planet is assured. Because when you ask, it is given. And there aren't enough of you, even though it's all of you, there aren't enough of you in physical form to pinch yourself off simultaneously from that which is source to do any real damage to this well-being that is promised that source has become. In other words, that's old news anyway. Over here is where life is, you see. That's why we never worry about your planet becoming deteriorated or it disintegrating or life becoming less, because it defies the laws of the universe. The contrast makes it become more. And even no matter what the state of it is that you all might be examining and calling, look at the way life is, we say, whatever is the state of being that any of you are looking at, it's old news. And that old news has produced new, better news that source is a vibrational equivalent to. That's why you must know your planet is not in peril. So when you go to sleep at night, whatever's going on in your mind is what's going on. And then you manage to quiet your mind enough that you reemerge into non-physical. That's what your slumber is. When you reemerge into non-physical, the non-physical part of you dominates. In other words, it's like joining that vibration that is really you. But the physical part of you, that active vibration of you, remains right where it was when you went to sleep. And when you wake up, you'll be right where you were. In other words, if you go to sleep in the vortex, you'll wake up in the vortex. If you go to sleep not in the vortex, you'll wake up not in the vortex. So one of the reasons that we teach meditation, we talked about it already here today, is that when you meditate and therefore you are awake, not asleep, and therefore conscious and therefore attracting, when you deliberately quiet your mind, you get to feel the visceral sensation of resistance leaving and alignment coming into place. That's why we encourage meditation rather than taking a nap. Because when you take a nap, you don't move your vibration. But when you meditate, you raise your vibration. And when you come out of meditation, your vibration is now in that higher place. So now let's get back to this vortex concept, because meditation is the way into the vortex. So however you got in there, now the next thing is to be consciously aware that you are in there. That is really a component to this seminar that we have not really discussed fully enough. We want you to realize that when you get in there, no matter how you got in there, milk it. Try to stay in there longer. Esther has been taking a deck of money and the law of attraction cards because she likes the artwork so much. And when she knows she's in the vortex, she will milk it with everything she's got. Look through a deck of cards, look through a photo album of people that she loves. In other words, take a walk down memory lane. Sometimes they'll just stumble, or so it seems. There's never any stumbling because law of attraction is always accurate. But it feels like they've stumbled into a particularly appreciative moment. And the two of them will stop and just dissect what it is about this moment that makes this moment feel so good. Why is this room so appealing, Esther will say. Well, in this room, it's easy to identify. Look at these chandeliers. This is really an exceptionally beautiful meeting room. So, and as she walked in, she looked at them. She could not stop looking at them. In other words, they don't rattle when the air conditioning comes on. They are silent and yet beautiful. They give off enough light that everyone in the room can see everyone in the room. Enough light that the camera can pick up the images that it wants to comfortably. What is it about this room? It feels like a good size and a good shape. In other words, the platform is a little higher than usual, which gives a little better vantage point. The temperature in this room has remained right where they have asked them to hold it at 70 degrees because they find that to be most comfortable for most people. In other words, this is the reason that I like this room so much. This is the reason. These are the reasons. And as you focus with an eye to understanding why this feels so good, why does this feel so good? Now, often you find yourself not in the vortex wanting to define why does this feel so bad? What's wrong with this meal? What happened? What were they thinking? How could they have put this together? Who's in the kitchen? Who's minding the store? In other words, you can affirm from outside the vortex or inside the vortex. We just want to alert you to the benefit of doing 100% of your deliberate affirming or restating or practicing the vibration of or making a vibration that's just active, making it longer active, longer active, longer active till it's dominant, then keeping it dominant, 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 dominant till it's chronic, until it's the easiest vibration to find. In other words, practice yourself into alignment with who you are and then begin to live life as you're viewing it through the eyes of Source. And really, we want to say to you in a really gentle way that it is easier to be in the vortex than not in the vortex, but it doesn't seem that way if you've been practicing a vibration that's been holding you out. But it's much easier, and you know how we know? Because this is who you are. This is the eternal you. This is who you will return to. In other words, this is the main event. This is the big story. You're here in this body creating that which is the non-physical version of you, which is always moving forward. Now hear this. We haven't said this before either. You get the cycle of life that we've been describing. You were non-physical energy, and then you became physical, and then you sifted and sorted, which caused you to launch rockets of desire, and the source energy part of you became it, and it is from that vantage point that you come forth again. So can you hear us when we say clearly to you that things that you're doing as an individual or as a collective consciousness in this life experience are causing the next life experience to get queued up? The world into which the babies are being born was created long before those babies came forth. In other words, that's this continual cycle of life, you see. And the larger part of you is always standing at the furthest advanced, furthest evolved, furthest joyous, expanded state of being. And you all can't stand it unless you're up to speed with that. And yet, those are the wrong words because you have figured out how to stand it. Because you're willing to put up with discouragement. You're willing to feel diminished. You're willing to feel angry or overwhelmed or fearful. You're willing to feel it. But just know that when you feel fear, that little fit you're throwing is because the larger part of you isn't going there with you. Isn't that good to know?